Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, this will be a quick overview of the course design process that I've been using in the past few years and adapted from several different frameworks that I've used. And I think, inshallah, this will be a simplified and effective model that will connect to instructors and trainers. So we call it course design for excellence in online learning. So the overall process is either 4 steps. So first, because most of us um, have never really or don't really teach directly online or prepare a course directly for online. In almost all situations, we've taught the course in a face-to-face environment before. So the first step is to analyze and look at our existing teaching face-to-face. So secondly, once we've done that and we've reflected, we think about the end in mind and what we would like at the end of the learning course that we are designing or workshop or other type of um, content delivery format um, where what we would like the students to be able to do. And I want to stress on the word do. And the third step would be that once we have the end in mind, we can design the structures that will help us to get there. So that will be broken into the following key sub-steps, if you want to call it this way. So we'll think about how we'll organize our learning topics, what are the active learning components that will wrap around those learning topics to ensure that learning is happening, and as well as the key student activities that will bring the students through the flow of content, and finally a core assessment required to evaluate the student performance. And the last step is, once we have this design in place, to think about a plan on how we're going to evaluate it to ensure that whilst we are delivering course, we are achieving our goals. And specifically for online learning, I want to add this post-design process because between our design and our actual going a step of implementing and producing this design, there is a research slash brainstorm step that is needed, and to think about, once we have this design in mind, what would be the best delivery platform to host the learning. So to take comparison with face-to-face, what type of, how would the university be structured, what kind of buildings we would have, what kind of institute, etc. So back to our online learning metaphor, what kind of content repository would it be? Or would it be a content repository? Or would it be a learning management system? Would it be an adaptive learning platform? Would it have more than one of those components, etc. And then we would also, based on the type of content that we'll be delivering, what type of content creation tools we'll be using, and also what will be the best interaction tools. And the if needed here is actually meant more for if it's live, but we don't have to have live interaction. We could have asynchronous interaction, and we could have both. So would we need an online live virtual classroom, discussion forum, social network type of environment, or combination of those? So I'm going to quickly go through the main questions that we have, or we would ask ourselves. First, we would look at our own current face-to-face teaching, and these are kind of the questions we'd be asking: how it's delivered, what are the main transformations that happen, what things one can improve, the current breakdown of topics, what kind of activities are being currently done, and describing actually one specific lesson actually is also a good helper on really analyzing how the teaching currently happens. And especially this step is almost always needs to be done in an interview fashion, or at least in a post uh, review of what has been completed as a questionnaire. So secondly, we'll kind of design or think about uh, what we would like, or how we would like to impact the student 2-3 years after this course is over. What would make this student different from somebody who has not taken this course? And how would we assess this change? And this will really help us in designing the final assessment. And to really focus here is not necessarily what knowledge the student will gain, but rather what the student is able to do with the knowledge that we'll be giving them. Knowledge, and it can be not only application of knowledge, but also change of attitude, change in which one does things, etc. And this will be high level. So this is a modified taxonomy from other taxonomies that I've seen. I've divided it in 3 components. On the right hand side here, we would have foundational knowledge. So it's mainly the concepts, ideas, and information. Um, you know, and this second part is using the knowledge, which is application, integration, and also, you know, how the students actually learns these concepts. And then finally the human dimension, which is, the changes that this knowledge, you know, uh, will affect on a more than cognitive level. So change of attitudes, feelings, change of interests, and different feelings that may be evoked or that we would like to be evoked in the student. So the reason why it's important to think in those taxonomies because they help each other to achieve long-term learning, um, as well as keep the student interested, and also they will help us to create our core goals for the course. So along with this step of defining the end in mind, we'll actually start looking at goals and again, foundational goals, knowledge goals, using knowledge goals, and this also probably this step is important to be done in an interview fashion. So we'll do this together, and sometimes uh, there might, depending on the course and the type of knowledge, type of change, there might be more foundational knowledge and and less using knowledge, or vice versa, etc. These are all questions that will help us think through, and the human dimension goals as well. Again, there might be more of those in certain courses versus others. And then this is probably the you know most time-consuming part once we've thought through the end, is to actually think about how we organize things. Now, by default, normally we'll use existing ways in which we've organized the topics, but there are a couple of frameworks that I will present about how knowledge builds on each other. That's one framework, and another one is a framework of um, how mastery is attained. That may, when we think through that may actually change the way in which we organize the learning topics, as well as thinking through active learning uh, components, whereby you know for which basically says that in order for the content to really cement in the person's mind and body, as well as spirit, one needs to go through a whole process of information review and understanding, which is this, then experience, which is basically using the information and ideas uh, in a practical way, or in a higher level way of cognition. And thirdly, to reflect on how we use the knowledge, uh, and so that once this circle is complete, then the knowledge is is properly cemented, and should stay on a longer term. So thinking through these, and we will basically review the current organization of topics, and also you know we might change them, and we might also add activities, and we'll also start defining what should be recorded, especially because this will be for an online environment. What will be recorded, what is readings, external resources, charts, identifying all the actual content pieces, what how we'll do the experiential part of it, and how we will be doing reflection and review. And this will basically be defined by a table in a document, where we'll break down each core module in this fashion. So, and we'll also look at the final assessment, where we kind of think about whether a final assessment one final assessment is enough, or do we need one final assessment, or final assessments at all, or is the sum of all the small assessments during the course are enough? So when you also think about that, and define it, and make sure that it's connected to our key goals in all the dimensions that we've defined earlier. And finally, we'll be looking at designing an evaluation plan. And the reason why it's important to design the plan of evaluation now is that because we're thinking on a high level, then we can really think through and make sure that of a plan of how our delivery of content and our activities, etc., to ensure that they would be connected and achieving our goals, and how we'll be measuring our goals, so that once before our course is delivered, we have the elements in place to gather the right information to perform the evaluation, whether it be done through focus groups, interviews, etc.